So with Summer BB making her return over here on the NA version of the game, I'm sure a lot of masters are wondering, is she worth actually pulling for? And surprisingly, given how there's not a whole lot of competition, quote unquote, around her banner, really the most major competition is going to be people like, say, Morgan and Arjuna Alta that are coming out, but you may or may not already have those characters or characters that are adjacent to them, meaning they kind of just do their job, whether you need a farmer or, someone for boss killing and quests. It leaves Summer BB in a very interesting position because even if you don't have Arjuna Alter or Morgan, I still think Summer BB is kind of up there in the priority list of getting if you really want to do fun and weird team comps. If you're just going to use her as a buster looper, then I don't really think there's any merit in just, oh, I gotta get this unit right now, because a lot of Summer BB's power comes from her third skill. Like I mentioned in yesterday's video where we were talking about the fact that, oh, she came back and checking out what the banner and everything was entailing, if there's anything special coming out, more news related. This is more of my evaluation of Summer BB, but my opinion still stands that the third skill that she has is one of the better things that we have in the game. Card RNG is one of those inherent things that are just kind of baked into the way that you play FGO. And her third skill being the only skill pretty much in the game that can lock that down for you is absolutely insane. And is a very, very precious thing that no other servant has gotten. The closest thing, and why I said kind of we don't have anybody else that can replicate that, is because you have, say, Ruler Artoria that can kind of get similar results. Funny enough, she's also a Buster AoE servant as well, so they do, I guess, fight for that role, although BB does a lot more damage, especially after she gets her buff. But with Ruler Artoria, you're kind of looking at your initial cards and you're shuffling them and kicking another, one of your servants out of the card rotation to kind of hope that you could really find the cards you want. With Summer BB, it's a bit different because, for one thing, that Ruler Artoria thing is only a temporary solution. That gets you one extra turn, which usually, if I'm using her as like a crit DPS or something in a boss fight because I'm an absolute maniac and I want to use the servants that I grail, I'm only really going to use it if I need to get a really strong turn, or I really want to take advantage of the NP gain. But for BB, you're guaranteeing what cards you're going to have for the next 3 turns. Which, an example I always cite for, how easy you can make some of these boss fights is, say, the end of Lost Belt 4, when you fight Ashvataman and you fight the Berserker Tree, you can turn that into a farming node with someone even as Parvati, right? The whole meme of Quick is really bad at looping, they have bad NP gain and everything, and there's only 2 enemies for this one. Surely this should be really terrible. Well, no, because you can essentially turn it into a farming node if you can get a rotation where you have, say, Parvati's, Quick and Arts cards, you lock that down. Now you just let Parvati just wash through it, and hey, your NP doesn't do enough damage, well, the crits will definitely get you over there because she's also providing stars, which I imagine was the initial intention, and not us doing all these random team comps where we're just like, oh yeah, nice boss fight DW, we're just gonna make that a farming node real quick. And so I assume they were like, oh yeah, you'll just use the face cards for critting and everything, so here's some stars. But oddly enough, it's just translated very well that stars are just always kind of good to have anyway. The only way they can make it better is if she also just gave everybody NP or just another generic buff that would be good to have for 3 turns. Now you might say, well, something a little annoying about it is that it might cost a little bit of AP. It might cost you, 20 AP to reset the stage and try to get things locked down, but usually when you're going into a boss fight, they lower the AP cost because they know a lot of players are going to have to redo it a couple of times. So usually boss fights are about 5 AP. I mean, think of like your challenge quest, or when you're going into fight like Sir Nunos or something like that on Lost Belt 6. These major fights usually get scaled down to 5 AP. So realistically, if you need an attempt or 2 anyway to kind of get good card RNG to just guarantee that you'll finish the fight, I think it's kind of worth. I think it's worthwhile if you're setting up something that's pretty much going to eliminate an aspect of the game in that card RNG that you can kind of weave around a little bit in FGO, because each character has 5 cards that get shuffled into a 15 card deck, and it's distributed, and you can kind of tell, okay, well, I saw both of my Summer BB's Buster cards this turn. I'm not going to see them, at least for 2 more turns, right? Because they're going to get shuffled out of the deck until all the cards are shown. But you can kind of, again, weave around that, right? Which is, again, super nice. And you also don't always know what the next cards are going to get are. You're like, man, I really hope that I see my quick card from this person. But again, it's still a 10 card deck on, say, the second turn. And if you're looking for one specific card, that's a 1 in 10 chance that that's going to appear on your second turn. That can be a little bit annoying. And then if you don't get it, well, sure, you're guaranteed for the next turn, but that means you had to wait 3 whole turns to get a card you could have just had on turn 1 if you locked it down with BB, which is why I think she's so valuable just for that 3rd skill alone. But like I said at the very beginning, if you just want to use her as a Buster AoE farmer, which, again, whenever she does get her 1st skill buff in a couple of months over here, they give her an attack buff, so now she'll have a Buster buff, a good NP damage buff, plus the attack buff that really does help out her overall damage and kind of push her to a more acceptable level. Still no power mods or anything, which is slightly disappointing, but she'll probably get that in the future as they're kind of updating some of these older servants as they go along. But if you just want to use her for that, I don't really think you're getting the full value out of that unit. I don't really think you're using them to their full capabilities. It's kind of like if you were to just use all of Castoria's buffs on herself and you tried to use her as like a self DPS. Sure, I'm certain that it could work to some degree. I'm sure that you could get some success in doing that, but you would be way more successful if you were buffing, say, the DPS servants, the guys that have their own offensive buffs and stuff along those lines. And that's, again, kind of how I view not using Summer BB's 3rd skill. If you're just kind of like bringing her as a decent Buster farmer, which is understandable. Maybe you just want to use BB. Maybe you also like your Sakura face servants. I can't complain either. If I had like an NP2 or 3 Summer BB, I would probably rock her on most stages as well. But if you never bring her to those weird contents, your advanced quests, your boss fights, your CQs, the Bleached Earth quests that we're going to start getting in about 2 years' time over here on NA, if you're not bringing her to those, and even just maybe not resetting all the time for those different like perfect starting turns, we can lock them down and have a prime 3-turn setup, which again, I don't really think is all that much of a problem because usually those fights are so cheap to do anyway that who cares. But even if you're not doing that, still, you'll find yourself at portions of the fight where you're like, hey, this is actually a really good position that I'm in. Maybe I'm looking at all my Koyenskaya skills are now all back up. I'm using BB as my main DPS, but I've noticed that I have BB's NP and I have both of her Buster cards. I could kind of just keep doing Buster chains or whatever, and I could just kind of Buster crit the enemy into oblivion and refund a little bit back on, say, Koyenskaya's NPs plus the Buster NP buff that she gives as well. And I might be able to sustain myself on that, especially, if her battery skills are back online, that'll get BB's back online, that you'll probably just be fine. Like, you'll probably be A-okay, especially after they give her that sweet, delicious extra attack buff, which I think pairs very nicely with the 3rd skill, and guaranteeing that you can always find those Buster Brave Chains for your BB, and then should basically be just guaranteed Buster critting all the time, or arts critting, quick critting, doing mighty chains, whatever you want to do, because you're going to be dropping 30 stars per turn, because 20 from the extra attack and 10 from the 3rd skill, not to mention any you gen off the actual extra attack, or, maybe the stray star or 2 that you get off the NP and the Buster cards. I think not at least using her for that a couple of times is really not taking advantage of how strong locking your cards down actually is, and not having to deal with card RNG, because we've all been there, right? We've all been in those scenarios where you're like, all right, if I can get my Melusine's arts cards, I can just really start going ham taro, or, if the next 3 turns kind of pan out really nice, like I'll get, I don't know why I'm using Melusine for this, but it's like, I get Melusine plus 1 arts card this turn, then I just get like her NP plus an arts card the next turn, and then I'll do like the Mighty Chain next turn. Again, I'm more thinking in like JP standards, but we'll get Mighty Chains during Anniversary and you guys will experience how strong they are. So it's like, you want to get those ideal things, but then sometimes you load in and then it's just, all right, whoops, all Merlin cards, or whoops, it's your Merlin and Castoria cards. I know you wanted to refund after firing your NP, but looks like that's not going to happen, little buddy. And sure, it does reset if somebody goes down or if you plug suit somebody out, but that doesn't stop you from, say, having a support dump all their buffs onto somebody, plug suit them out, and then go ahead and lock down your cards. That's certainly another way to do it. As someone who doesn't personally own Summer BB, if that's how I want to use her, if I have to grab a friend, that's how I'll have to do things, right? I'll have to like put BB in like my beginning party, and then I'll have one of my guys in the front, kind of buff her up, and then I'll plug suit a guy out, and then after the new support is in there, if I like where the cards are and everything, then, I'll lock the cards down, and I'll be all set up for the next 3 turns. And it's definitely really fun. Is it the most ideal thing to do? Not necessarily all the time. Again, like Parvati being able to farm the end of Lost Belt 4, I think that's one of those just very funny cases where it works out super well, and the fact that you can just farm it that easily is funny. But sure, you could probably bring a more optimal servant that could take down the challenge quest without having to lock the cards down. But 1, it's really funny. 2, it's actually pretty good, and it takes a load off of you when trying to plan out what you exactly want to do. And 3, it makes you feel really 5-head without actually having to be super 5-head, if that makes sense. Because realistically, you just gotta know, okay, me want to have art with my art servant. Okay, I see blue card, I click the 3rd skill. It really is like not all that complicated, but it makes you feel like you're doing something really complicated. So unlike Miss Crane, where you actually have to like pay attention to your actual slots and everything, realistically, if you just want 2 supports, that's all you got to pay attention to. Like, make sure you click the 3rd skill after you do the plug suit and everything, then you're going to be all good. But I definitely think this is one of those servants that is worth rolling for. Again, I talked about her in the extra class servant video, and I wish that I'd went in more depth with her over there, but I was worried about that video being too long as is anyway. But I definitely think this is one of those servants that if you want to go roll for them, I think there is merit for going for them, because again, Arjuna Alter and Morgan are also right around the corner, and sure, they're better Buster AoE servants, but they don't have what BB has on the 3rd skill. They don't open up your account to new doors of opportunity with all of the setups that Summer BB can allow you to do it, especially because she's going to get buffed as well in just a couple months here. You can also use her as a Buster AoE farmer. Not the craziest one, but you can also use her to that effect, especially if you're going to go for higher NP copies. Although, I'm not trying to say that I think Summer BB as a unit is better than Arjuna Alter or Morgan. That I think I would have to marinate on a little bit. Morgan, you guys know I'm definitely going to say is better. Morgan's absolutely crazy, but Arjuna Alter, there's maybe some type of discussion you could have there between CQ content and farming content and which one is like maybe more impactful. I don't know. There's like something to have there, but this is not the video for that. Y'all can maybe argue that in the comments down below if you guys want, and if it's something that people are raging about, maybe it'll be something I discuss. But with that being said, I hope this video wishes you good luck on your rolls. You can use it as a catalyst. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more content, and come out Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays for FGO streams, and Tuesday, Thursdays every now and then when I decide to stream something different. But with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.